Here. Hope everybody's well. So, I like to do mental exercises for myself. I like to check my mind and my heart these days on pretty much a daily basis to make sure that I am not allowing some of the stuff that I research and consume to permanently darken my eye gates or ear gates. But some things are important to know. God's children perish for lack of knowledge, we are told. And I agree with that. Knowledge in and of itself is not evil. It's what someone does with it. It's their intent. But I like to do these little thought experiments. And I like to do them together with you so that we cannot be deceived. And so that we recognize when our immediate environment is being manipulated. One day you might say, that weird girl on YouTube that talks about those strange things. I had never seen this happen, but, now that I think of it, I'm noticing these signs around me. I'll get more into my testimony, but it's definitely a cautionary tale, not a duplication template or anything. But more on that later. So I was trying to figure out if they go forward with what we call the alien deception. Okay, I'm not saying that aliens aren't real. I'm not saying that God cannot create anything, because nothing is beyond the creator. If we're here, of course there are other things here that are alive. And honestly, the one verse in the gospel that really sticks out to me, and I wasn't like a Bible thumper or anything before 2018 and all this high strangeness started happening, but I'm a reader and I wanted to research things, and I started reading the Bible for myself, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty on point. So whether it's their playbook or it is God's literal word, these things are coming to pass. So I think it's important to understand your own sovereignty, to understand you always have agency and there's always a choice. You should count the cost before you make a decision about anything. But, truth and liberty isn't always rewarded in this realm, but it is in the spirit realm. The lower you go here, the higher your spirit will ascend. It is that the law of resistance, I think it's called, which we're also going to talk about natural law a bit as well. But I was starting to think, if they do this alien deception, the main thing it's going to do, as Reagan said in his speech, is to bring the world population together. So there will not be borders any longer. Look, I think culture is important. I don't hate anybody. I don't really follow stereotypes. My father didn't raise me that way. So, and nobody has to believe that. It's just, it should be evident by how I interact with my subscriber base, And I don't hate anyone. I try to love, I pretty much do love everybody. And that might be a weakness in this realm, but again, spiritually, it is rewarding. So there is that. Now, again, I'm not saying they're not real. I'm saying they're going to use it to their own advantage. And I want you to try thinking of this yourself, figure things out, figure out if it's possible, could this be done just to deceive people? It's a danger to think an unknown species is flat out benevolent or malevolent. We simply don't know. There are good people and there are bad people, and there is good and bad in each and every one of us. And I don't think any person is beyond redemption, of their character, of their reputation, of their soul. But you just have to be willing to do the inner work and feed your spirit and consume properly. So I was thinking, how could they do this effectively in the world today? Well, number one, they would have to, take over the televisions or the screens. Now, most people don't have cable anymore, but, we have the emergency broadcast system. They would utilize that. They would utilize the Amber Alerts via the cell phone network, the cellular network. And the thing most people don't know, and I know this because I worked at a cell phone company for years, and they share cell towers. Your information isn't actually in your phone. It's in a cloud in a tower bouncing around here and there. And, companies will share the same towers oftentimes. So again, you have the same couple companies, the same couple families kind of running everything. But they would definitely use it to deceive us and either say, A, they are straight out malevolent, or B, they're benevolent. I think they will go with both, probably. There will probably be a faction of each. We will need to institute, a worldwide nation at that point, like an international, UN would pretty much be the new government, where the new government will be housed. So how could they effectively do this, though? Well, if you look how a city is planned out, and again, this is a rough video visually, I'm trying to take you somewhere mentally. Most communities, small towns, are set up like this. One way out, one way in, sometimes four. And if there's only one way in, trust that that's planned that way. And most ghettos are where there are one-way roads, they will have that at a lower income-driven families who are dependent upon the government, and that they pretty much feed bad elements into, the urban communities, and it's a travesty. Everything that's gone on in our nation, our forefathers would be shocked. And now they're bad-mouthing them too. And again, it is just to tear down our culture. America had a loose culture to begin with, but they're really just hammering home and trying to destroy everyone's personal culture or paradigm and build up one that everyone is under. So to do this effectively, how could you do this? Well, first, here's how a city is planned, okay? So you look at this, and then you want to say, okay, you could go, the best way I think would be to go from community to community. And I've said this over and over. I think this has already happened in part. They would have to take over the internet. I think that's why we're seeing so many bots, so many trolls. What you do is you turn an internet into an intranet, like how every company has their own intranet, just for, people who are employed there. You would do the same thing with a community. You would route its service back in on basically a loop, and you would keep all their information local, and you would control the information that they received. So I would go country by country, community by community. That's what makes the most sense to me. And it's Hegelian dialect. They're going to give us the problem, then the reaction, then the solution, because they want us set up in a very particular way. And in order to do this, they have to get everybody lined up and kind of, in order, so to speak. So now what would you look for next? You see how a city town is planned out. Well, now you'd kind of want to look into tornado sirens, because you don't hear them a lot. Most people tune them out. Ours go off at noon every day. This is what they would use for the sound, okay? Because I've noticed a few times I've heard planes and I've not seen any in the sky on a clear day. How would you fool people like this into thinking there's still air traffic? Because I know for a fact air traffic has severely decreased since mid-2019, maybe even late 2018. I live by a base. I live in the middle of where two major airports are, and I always had a plane going overhead. Now I don't see them very often, and when I do, it's usually in the evening. And some, I think, are tests. I think you could play a sound through these effectively so that people think that there is something there that is not there. And then what else would you use for the actual objects in the sky? Well, you'd use something like this. Now this is why also I think all these big YouTubers are pushing this. Everyone in the club has done a video on this, okay? And you know how I feel about its creator. I don't even think the poster boy that they use is that actual person. There's somebody else behind the scenes who is actually Elon Musk. And I know that doesn't make sense, but go back to that video and maybe, again, you'll have to listen to it a couple of times. But honestly, if you're a high-profile person, you're not going to want your image everywhere. You're going to want to be able to travel unimpeded, right? You're going to want to be able to go to the grocery store, go for a drive, just take a walk. So I don't think they always put their real persona out in the public eye. But then you'd use something like this, and I've seen videos pop up like this. When this all first started, there was a video, a short up on YouTube, and it said they spelled 5G is coming in the sky with these little dots. I think Starlink is going to connect everybody, of course, but you could get some pretty realistic visuals if you use this, okay? So this combined, this would be the visual with the tornado sirens. You could pretty much fake an alien invasion and not actually have like those crafts and this type of thing everywhere, right? They could make it look more abundant than what the situation really calls for or is in reality. I haven't put it all together yet, but I'm just saying, be very vigilant. Ask yourself questions. Play devil's advocate. Look at every side, every angle. Who has motivation to push a certain agenda? Because there are so many deceptions afloat right now, and I don't want to see people carried away by them, especially in fear. When you're in fear, you'll panic and you'll make hasty decisions, which are mistakes that could cost people their lives. And so I think we need to maintain a mind that is able to critically think and reason things out using logic. And then if that fails, then you go to the supernatural. But if you're on this channel, you know that I believe there's a supernatural element that drives all of this stuff we're seeing physically manifested. And right now we're kind of reaping what we sowed. I was an influencer before that was even a term, and I lost valuable hours doing that. And it cost me some really close relationships that I had, and that's why I do this. But I don't want to see other people make the same mistakes that I have made, and I just want us all to be vigilant. I'm not saying aliens aren't real. I actually do believe that they exist. I call them angels. You call them aliens. Tomato, tomato. What matters to me is making any judgments, right? You have to have proper discernment. So make sure you're using that at all times, and don't let anyone take that from you. You always have a choice, always. And even if you feel like you've gone too far with something, God is the creator of all, and I don't care what people say, oh, Satan runs this kingdom. Yeah, he might run like the economy or whatever, but God gave man dominion over the earth, and Satan only kind of has it by default. We need to learn how to stand up, reclaim our sovereignty, and be firm. And it's very irresponsible, that attitude that I've heard from my grandparents. Well, I won't be here whenever, so I don't care what happens. We have children. We have grandchildren. We should give a hoot about what happens, because sooner or later it's going to be your backyard, or, that's dirty, so to speak. You know what I mean? We should all be taking care of our environments and the people that are in it and trying to help each other along. So these are my small efforts, and I try to do these thought experiments just to say, okay, am I reasoning things out? Am I using logic here? Because it's crazy times, and I don't want to be swept away. I don't want you to either. There is more coming. I have to do a part 2 of my testimony, because it gets into some really sketchy, high strangeness. But again, I want to hear what you guys think. Have you noticed this uptick in the last few years, especially since the eclipse? And I want to hear your thoughts. I'll be also posting some older videos that are saved from the other channel, just so that the material doesn't get redundant. But I'm going to shoot for black goo and getting into that whole topic next. So watch for that.